So flip that round. So let's say, for example, when we are potentially at an 85% vegan, 15% meat eating situation, are you saying it's a good thing that someone is then going to be berated for their choice in their diet?
Well, I don't think
Because that
they.
makes that no
I don't.
different to when it was
I
the other
wouldn't
way round,
condone.
when there
You can have
was.
a quick look at the comments section to see that you don't need to berate anyone. Just by existing, we trigger people. But just to go back quickly to what you mentioned earlier, Ari, like how would it be policed? Essentially, like if you would work still on that 85%, then all of these inspectors and all of these RSPCA people and everyone that currently polices everything will be 85% vegan. So therefore, their standards are vastly already changed. They're not looking at animal welfare anymore. They're looking at animal rights. 85% is enormous. So think of how many people that currently do inspections or hand out certificates or RSPCA assured or Red Tractor that are now going to be vegan with that mindset. This part of the hypothetical
Can I just?
situation
Sorry,
is forgotten.
just there's someone here, Earth Angel 1414. No one's being berated apart from vegans. And this is where I'm sorry, we don't agree. I said because there is thousands and thousands of people out there that have issues that aren't diet related, and to just believe that the vegan believers in vegan diet or vegan life are the only ones that are getting berated is so narrow-minded.
Yeah, of course, there's lots of
And,
issues,
and that's
but I
yeah,
mean, to be honest, I'm
and
not too concerned about like people. I'm well aware that people will attack vegans because it's an unpopular opinion and people don't like feeling guilty. But I think it's more interesting, like the points you were talking about. Whether it's a good thing that people feel ashamed of doing something where they're causing harm to others, and I think that's an interesting question. I do think it's a good thing because I think it motivates people to not engage in that behavior, and I think overall that's a good thing. But yeah,
so can I just jump in there just for just 1 second? So if I'm being too personal, tell me. Did anyone ever make you feel ashamed of being gay?
yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, definitely at school and stuff. I don't think like very directly, but yeah, certainly at times. Yeah.
Okay, so me personally, and I can, I would never ever um, talk down on someone for the way that they, that what they believe in, So this comes completely neutrally.
Well, anything.
If we do
I
get to a
mean,
point,
not
if
any
we
belief.
if we do get
If
to a
you had a
point
belief
where we
in
are,
kicking dogs.
no, if we do get to a point where we are predominantly a vegan society,
Yeah.
why would it be acceptable to make anyone feel ashamed of their choice to eat meat?
I think you're looking at that part. I don't think anyone's talking about, like, for example, we're 85% vegan and like the 15%
Just using
that
it
are
as a
having
number.
their Saturday
It's
dinner
purely
in
hypothetical.
Beefeater are going to be like hounded by militant vegans who charge up to them at the table. It's not going to be like that. It's just in the sense that the way that the example he's making is, if someone stood in the street in the equivalent of posting meat emojis in here bragging about a bacon sandwich, then society around
Yeah,
them
I think, and to be honest, I think that's ridiculous.
it's not anyone going to
Yeah,
be
that's going to
berated.
go
It's society
down.
will
Yeah.
no longer sort of be like, yeah, that's fine to say. It'll be like, no, that's not acceptable. That's the difference. It's not
Yeah,
that anyone's going to be sort of like
yeah,
singled out and people are going to be stampeded during their lunch. It's just the fact that, and that's the way society's always worked with things. Things used to be far more acceptable to say even
But
20, 30 years ago than they are now. It's society that will move. It's not that anyone's going to be berated and harassed or anything. It's
I
just
think
that
that's the
society's going to
difference.
frown on their actions.
The difference is between what's happening to vegans right now, which I don't think is a huge issue, but like, yeah, okay, some people writing bacon emojis or whatever. Vegans aren't doing anything to harm anyone, right? So our beliefs they're the opposite, actually. We're trying to promote compassion
I think that's a
and
contentious argument.
hang on, let me finish. So vegans aren't doing it.
Yeah.
Our whole passion thing is about let's not slit the throats of cows. Let's not put pigs into gas chambers in the UK, right? So all of those things are about, non-violence. It's a peace movement, similar to people fighting against other injustices. So That's the point. By being vegan, all you're saying is, I don't think we should be, being violent to the other animals, right? So that's the point. So there's nothing really justified in terms of basically people saying that, harassing us for that. However, I think when it comes to, you said, what's the difference? Well, I think we can't say that all beliefs should be respected. Like, what do you think? Do you think that any belief, regardless of, and also acting on that belief, of course, the behaviors associated with that belief, do you think that all beliefs should be respected and all behaviors should be respected no matter what? If somebody had the belief that it's okay to beat up a dog with a baseball bat, do we have to respect that just because it's their belief? Or would you draw the line at victims? Again, do you draw the line at victims? Because I think that's what most people do. They draw the line at victims.
I think that is a fair point. I think that there is a socially accepted grade of what is acceptable. I mean, it's you can think of anything in the world, and as disgusting as a lot of it is, someone will like it. It's
bad stuff will always
not ever
happen,
going to be.
But we have a choice. No,
right?
But
I don't even mean just bad stuff. I mean we're talking really horrific stuff.
Yeah, terrible stuff will happen.
It's always going to happen
elsewhere in the world. Yeah, but we have a choice whether we want to contribute to more suffering, right? Each of us can make that choice whether we. Just because bad stuff happens doesn't mean I'm going to throw my hands in the air and say, well, look, bad stuff happens elsewhere. No point me worrying about putting a pig in a gas chamber. I don't subscribe to that logic.
But even on that point, look at how many people, for example, would change their profile picture or post something in solidarity with Ukraine recently when they've got no possible way of changing or influencing what's going on there. But they still made that little bit of effort to show that they care. Whereas people will flat out refuse to attempt this. So just because you're not possible yourself of changing something completely doesn't stop people doing it for other things. They are capable. And actually, when it comes to veganism, one person, more so than most other cause, does make a huge difference. Just one person, because you're no longer consuming animals yourself for a start. You're no longer wearing them. Plus, your impact on the world is greater. So just one person changing makes a huge amount of difference. But people will do it for other causes that they've got no real way of impacting or changing. I mean, how is someone changing their profile picture in England going to affect anything in Ukraine? It's not. But people will still do it.
No, I don't. I think that's ridiculous as well.
But how many millions and millions and millions of people did it? Without even considering it, they just did it because they wanted to show that they can't change anything. But
I mean, people love causes.
That's where I think we're inherently we don't care as much as we probably would like to make out. If that's probably going to be a big big red flag. But I think there are a lot of people that, let's be honest, unless it's out of their back garden, they don't really care. And yes, while there may be someone who lives in the middle of an estate in the middle of Birmingham or Manchester or wherever, because a lot of their friends are putting the Ukrainian flag. I'm not saying there's going to be one person that it starts with, and I'm almost going, sort of like the sort of pro-vegan, advertisement in that, yes, one person starts it and the rest follow, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, crack on. That is not going to change how I decide to live.
But I think it's kind of a bit misrepresenting veganism to suggest it's just some fad and everyone just follows, because actually, to be vegan, it's really tough. You're pushing against the tide. Everything in society doesn't want you to be vegan, right? Including family, friends. So the idea is it's just, being a sheep and just following is just so misunderstood. It's the complete opposite. It'd be far easier if you want to follow. It would be far easier to just follow and eat animals, right? Because that's what everyone is doing.
Yeah, it'd be much easier for us to just shut up and be ignorant again.
So the idea that, if anything, following would actually be to carry on, doing what everyone else is doing, which is to say, yep, I'll eat, stroke the dog, be kind to the dog, and pay for pigs in gas chambers. But vegans, we kind of waking up to the fact that this is not logical. This does not make sense. We shouldn't we should teach kids to be kind to pigs the same way as we teach kids to be kind to dogs. There is no logic that can justify this huge difference in the way that our society is treating these two species. Like, it makes zero sense. And vegans are just calling bullshit and just saying, no, this is not right. Like, someone's got to say it, and that's how society has changed. That's how it's always changed. You know, a few people starting to say, call bullshit on something and say, hey, this is not the way we should be behaving.
Absolutely.
You say people are trying to make it hard for you, though. Like, if you were being 100% brutally honest, how many people do you think about your dietary choice and your own personal dietary choice, how many people do you think actually care what you eat?
It's not about that, though. Just to quickly just nip this in the bud.
This is where he went. You know.
I mean, for example, when you leave your house and you choose not to kick a dog, do you consider that part of your diet? Do you consider that a trend?
That isn't.
Or do you consider it morality?
I think you're belittling it to a diet choice. It's not about food. It's about clothing.
I'm not. This is your belief, isn't it? The vegan life is your belief.
My belief is veganism is not a diet choice. It goes beyond diet. It's a philosophy of peace, right? It covers clothing, it covers makeup, it covers entertainment, it covers food. So to kind of, you know, belittle it into, oh, who cares about your diet choice? It's kind of misrepresenting veganism. I think you know that it's about more than about
because
food.
Who cares about whether I eat meat or not? No one.
Well, the cow does, because they're having their throat slashed open.
How do you know that? I hate that throwaway comment. I hate that throwaway comment. But there's no proof.
Okay, so there's no proof that a dog would not like to have their throat slashed open. So should we slit the throat of a dog then, because we can't prove that it doesn't like it? What about a baby? Like, a baby can't communicate to us either. So are you saying, because, you know,
well, let me say, how about the polar bears, or how
an individual cannot communicate consent to being slaughtered, that means that lack of consent equals consent? Is that what you're saying?
And someone just said, Rain Edie just said, throat slashed open, that isn't how it's done. And she's right.
All right, describe to us how your cows are killed then. Can you describe in detail?
So as far as I am aware, in most registered UK slaughterhouses, because I cannot talk for other, like we said before, the videos you see from Asia and South America and stuff like that, I think are absolutely disgusting.
Well, let's just talk about what happens in the UK.
Exactly, but I'm just making sure that I'm making myself clear, because it can be very, very easily twisted.
How are your cows killed? You must know that. So just give us in detail.
So as it currently stands, because I am such a small producer, I haven't actually sent anything to slaughter. So I haven't actually taken any of my cattle. I have taken sheep when I had sheep, but I haven't currently taken any cattle to the slaughterhouse.
But you mean not you personally, but you've produced.
Not me personally.
Right. So
but I have produced animals to a store. So they call it a store weight.
Okay, but they would be then slaughtered, right? So how are they slaughtered? Whether it's you individually doing it or not, I'm not asking that, obviously.
So individually, if I have to end the life of a suffering animal, it will be.
Not if. This is not if a situation. This is just, how are your cows slaughtered right now? Even if you're not accompanying them to the slaughterhouse, I'm just asking you, how are cows slaughtered? Because you said that their throats are not split open. So a bolt gun and then their throats are slit open?
They're either bolted or they are electrocuted. A lot of pigs are electrocuted.
No, 90% of pigs are actually not using electrocution. They're put in gas chambers. That's from the Food Standards Agency. So almost 90% of the 9 million pigs slaughtered in Britain each year are put into gas chambers. So actually, electrocution is another method of stunning, but that tends not to be used in the UK because they think it's less humane, because you have to separate the pigs and they start getting very anxious because they're very social creatures. So it's very difficult. And also with the prods that they use the tongs they use to electrocution, There's a lot of human error, so some people would say that it's less humane than the gas chambers, but both are horrific. But then they still have their throats slashed open, right? That's the stunning process, and then they have
they do. They have to be bled. They have to be bled.
Yeah, they have to be bled. So so for the cows, let's not pretend that their throats are not slashed open. They are. It's just that they're bolt gunned to the head first, and they're strung up by their ankles, upside down, and then somebody slashes their throat. Correct?
Yeah, but that isn't how they haven't had their throat slit and are hung upside down while they're conscious and alive, have they?
No, they have the bolt gun, and then they have their throat slashed open.
Yeah. So
unless it's halal, I think then if it's halal slaughter, then they're not allowed to be stunned. So the first thing has to happen is that their throats are slashed.
Yeah, and I'm without wanting to go down a religious belief tunnel or rabbit hole. That isn't something I wish to talk about because I don't agree with it.
Well, lots of people would suggest that halal slaughter. The whole point of halal slaughter is it's meant to be better for the animals that they're not.
They argue the same,
and that is their belief.
It's the safest and the nicest.
That's their belief, and I wish to leave that there.
I mean, both ways are
something I want to discuss as halal slaughter.
Well, it happens in the UK, so it's not something that's just happening abroad.
Take the religious element.
No, I'm not saying it is.
So you're not worried about offending.
All right, let's forget halal for a moment.
What bothers you about it? Do you think it's not necessary? Do you think it's cruel? Do you think it's what is it? Take the religious and worrying about offending anyone, for example. What is it that you don't like about it? Why is that different?
Again, that's not something I'm going to discuss. But I have strong objections to.
Because you're worried about the cow
practice. Yeah, absolutely.
But you're not worried about the cows that are bolt gunned and then throat slashed.
No, because I think as soon as that bolt has done its job,
so
it's game over, lights out. It is quick.
If we were to do that to Labradors, let's say, would you be okay with that? Like
I was about to say, why don't we bolt gun animals at the vets? I mean, it would be a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah, it would be.
Why don't we do that?
My girlfriend is a veterinary nurse.
Quickest, easiest, painless.
Well, hopefully she's not doing it to dogs that don't need to, that aren't suffering. Hopefully it's only mercy killing that they're doing that. But let's talk about free range. There
is animals that she does have to use Pentaject on.
Yeah, but the point about animal agriculture is we're not doing it out of kindness to the individual, right? We're not doing it because we're trying to put them out of their misery. We're doing it. The whole system is breeding and killing them. The whole system is misery, right? So it's nothing to do with what we're doing to dogs, where we're saying,
I can't say the whole system is misery. I think that's a very morbid.
Well, look, obviously you didn't spend much time in your slaughterhouses, but I encourage you to go and have a walk around and see what's happening to those cows. I assure you, you would not want to trade places.
You said the whole animal agriculture process is morbid.
Yes, because the whole point in the whole process is leading up to this event, which is to slaughter them, which is like a horror film. It's horrible. Like you wouldn't want to trade places with them. You wouldn't want your dog to trade places with them. You wouldn't want anyone you care about to be in their situation.
Saying your life. That's like saying, your life. The eventual goal or the end of your life is you're going to die. So what's the point?
Not
He's
true.
got the choice to do whatever
I was not bred for the purpose of killing me, right? I wasn't enslaved and bred for the purpose of killing me. That's not the purpose of my life. The whole reason that these animals exist is to be bred and killed. You look at chickens killed at 6 weeks old. Their purpose to live is to die. I think that's incredibly sad. And that's not the case for humans. That's not the case for wild animals. Nobody, if you think about beef cows, their purpose is their flesh, right? That's why they exist, because we want to exploit them for that part of their anatomy. Or if you think about dairy cows, their reason to exist is their breast milk, right? We don't care about the fact that breast milk is for the calf, for mammals to feed their young. No, we are exploiting them. We want their breast milk. That's why they exist. Then we kill them, right? So the whole system is just, devoid of any humanity or compassion or care for those individuals. I think it's horrendous.
And is where we will always massively disagree, because where you believe that there isn't any care or any compassion or anything like that, that will always be our fall down between both sides of the argument.
Well,
and there
you
will
care
never be
about them
anything.
up to a
There will
point,
never be
right?
anything that you will ever say that will ever
You don't care
change
enough to
my
stop.
view on that.
You don't care enough to stop, bolt gunning them and slashing their throats, right? So if you were doing that to dogs,
No, but I care
and
enough
you
to
said,
stay up and all the way through the night to make sure that the cow that I have calves successfully and there are no complications, or I have to then spend £600 getting the vet out.
That's your business.
No, it's not my business. In actual fact, it's no. I actually work on a farm. The cattle are essentially my hobby, so it's that's where the argument will be.
It's not for them, right? You're not doing it out. If it was for them, we wouldn't be breeding.
Of course, I am.
We wouldn't be breeding and killing them.
Of course, I am staying up all hours of the night and ensuring that the shed that they're in is well housed and ensure that the straw they've got so they have a decent bed is there. That is all for their care.
The whole point of their existence is you said it yourself. You're beef. That is the name on the door, right? That's beef. This is what you're producing. So their whole existence is about their dead bodies, right? So yes, you might care about them in the short term in some small part of the process, but just like you might find that there are examples of people abusing dogs, right, where they're breeding them into existence for the purpose of skinning them and having dog fur farms or whatever, right? And those dog fur farmers might say, hey, look, I cared for that dog, when they were a puppy, and therefore it's okay for me to carry on breeding these dogs and slaughtering them at a fraction of their lifespan. I fundamentally disagree. I think you don't care enough. You care up to a point, right? But part of that is also the product, right? But yes, you might care also about them as an individual, but not enough to stop exploiting them, not enough to stop slaughtering them.
And I think, again, that's where we're always going to massively disagree. And
we would just stop doing what we're doing.
You could say that about a lot of stuff.
Nights that you've spent, right? You take some of those nights you've spent with mother and calf, and you've watched that clearly more than once. How can you say something like, "How do we know they don't like having their throat slit"? You've watched them.
Okay, well, how can you say then that
attached to them? You must know the same way that you wouldn't want it. Like,
how can you say then that, like, when there's a mother, especially a heifer, so a first-time mother who does not mother that calf, what do I then do with that? Am I then responsible for it? Do I then just leave it, let nature take its course?
Because that's happened all because of you and what you're doing.
But I haven't done it.
Naturally, has it?
What? She hasn't given birth naturally?
No. How did she get pregnant?
Artificial insemination, right?
I use AI.
Yeah, so
exactly.
I use
an arm up the anus.
Just hang on a second. Let me just finish. I use AI because I do not have.
Can you?
So I use AI. Yeah, I will do in a second. But the reason I use AI is because I don't have the housing that is secure enough for a bull.
It's standard practice AI.
Well, not in the beef industry, more so in the dairy industry.
Okay, I'd like
beef industry is predominantly used as a bull. So with the AI process,
so basically,
it's much like a female, anus, right? A human.
Hand up the anus.
So it's much. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, hand up the anus. Grip the cervix from the inside.
Do you know why? Yeah.
Grip the cervix from the inside. Before that, masturbate the bull to get the semen, right? So a bit of bestiality going on, masturbating bulls to collect the semen.
Well, it's not actually like that, but if that's the
how do you get the semen? How do you get the semen out of the bull?
So there is a probe that is inserted anally into the bull.
An anal probe, exactly.
Yep.
I mean, this is just like animal abuse. It's incredible. You can explain this.
Right. So now, forgive me for being a little bit.
Carry on.
Forgive me for being just a little bit.
You put the electric dildo up the bulls, and this is all circle of life food chain, right? Okay, so electric
Natural
dildo
something.
goes up the bull's anus, then it ejaculates. Then you put that into a metal syringe called an AI gun. You've got one gloved arm.
It's actually put into a plastic straw.
Oh, frozen.
So it's then cryogenically frozen.
Frozen, right. Sorry, I missed a step. Right, so you put the masturbated semen that was collected with an electric dildo up the anus. You put that into a frozen pot, and then or a straw, or whatever, and then you then get that into the AI gun, right? So how do you get it from the straw into the AI gun?
How do you mean? It's placed in by the AI technician.
Okay.
The straw is basically inserted into the AI gun.
Right, and then you've got the gloved. So the hand that's holding the AI gun is in the other hand, and then you've got the other hand forced into the anus while she's restrained, right? And then you're gripping the cervix.
This is the contention bit. So the only reason that cow is held in a cattle crush is because it needs to be still in order to insert the AI gun successfully. Now, before you say anything else...
I mean, it sounds a bit like rape to me, but...
Well, this is where I was about to say before you say anything else. In a natural, we're going to use the word natural setup, where you have a bull and a cow, the cow obviously, much like female, human females, they have a cycle.
Yeah, they're on heat.
That cow, they're basically, and they call it standing heat. Because when a cow is with a bull, if the bull then jumps the cow, she will stand for the bull.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying she's going to stand rigidly still, because we all know that doesn't happen. If you've got a 800 kilo animal jumping on your back, you're going to move a little bit, quite a lot. But the part of that cycle is standing heat. So she will stand for that bull. So the reason, like I say, this is where so that is why the reason she is restrained is because obviously there isn't that movement, because you've obviously got something.
It's easier to keep, impregnating them, right? I mean, that's it. It's just easier, right? For the farmer.
How do you mean easier?
Well, it's more efficient, right?
No, it's not.
Get it done without them moving around. Arm in the anus, injector into the vagina, right? Done.
Easier than what?
Easier than them moving around.
Well, yeah, obviously, because if you've got something, it's like it's like a surgeon. Why do you get put under general anaesthetic for a surgery?
Yeah, I mean, if I have surgery, it's for my benefit. So none of this is for the cow's benefit. This is us just exploiting them. But
the cow, the cow wants to get pregnant. That is part of a cycle. If you put a cow and a bull next to each other, when she gets to a certain point of her cycle, she wants to get pregnant.
So what I find weird is that when we talked about a cow not wanting to have their throat slashed open, you were very quick to say, how do you know? How do you know what the cow thinks? But suddenly now, the cow wants to get pregnant. So I would throw that back at you. How do you know that the cow wants to get pregnant?
Because I was asking you, how do you know?
How do you know that the cow...
That's why they jump on top of each other.
Yeah.
So a cow will ride another cow.
The thing is,
you will find a cow acting like a bull at some point in her cycle where she will actually jump the back of another cow. And you will also find where it's the other way around.
We're doing all of this because of what the cows want, right? So do they also want...
No, I'm not saying we are. That isn't...
Okay, so it's kind of irrelevant, right? So we're just kind of using that as a point to...
It's not irrelevant at all.
Well,
you're using the imagery of a masturbated bull.
It's not imagery. That's what we do. You just told everyone yourself that you put an electric dildo up their arse to make them ejaculate. Because we want to collect the semen.
And I'm sure there is a lot of men in the world that would enjoy the same thing.
Yeah, if they consented to it.
Yeah, consent. Right? That's a big thing. Consent.
Do you really think regardless,
this is bestiality. Like,
now jumped away from the process and we're now into consent.
do you think there's any restrictions on bestiality? Do you think that people should just be able to do whatever they want to animals because animals don't have the ability to say no? Because that's kind of your logic.
Yeah, I recently covered a case of a man.
But you could say that about everything.
Assaulted chickens. Would it be okay because they couldn't?
So I'm asking you: do you think that we should be able to do whatever we want to an individual because they can't say no? I mean, you could use the same logic with children. I mean, children can't say no, right? Or a baby can't say no. So are you suggesting that if that individual cannot express that they do not want...
I'm not suggesting anything. This is something you're conjuring.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking your opinion. Do you think that if an individual cannot consent to something, that means that we have the right to do whatever we want? Because I would think the opposite. I think lack of consent is not consent.
Absolutely.
The same as a drunk lady in a club who is drunk. She does not have the capacity to consent, or a child does not have the capacity to consent. That isn't the same as consent.
And while I can understand where you're coming from, but I think that again opens up an entirely different argument, and not just about the situation we're talking about. If you had someone who had, let's say, suicidal thoughts, and you then said that you did not want, or you had decided that you did not want any rescue from your compatriots, you were hell-bent on killing yourself, but you had not given them consent to save you. That you can use that argument, the consent argument, about everything to fit something you're talking about.
I don't understand what you're trying to say. What's your point?
You're saying that just because someone can't say no, that then
doesn't give us the right to do whatever we want.
Doesn't give us the right. Yeah. And I think that there are situations where someone who is unable to say no, actually it could be in their benefit. And just because we are saying that, if someone can't say no, you can't possibly do that.
But we're talking
you're opening up all sorts of...
But we're talking about things which are causing harm, right?
There's loads of stuff that causes harm with, that, like I say, people can't say no to.
Yeah, like being pushed into a slaughterhouse, right?
Related.
So clearly, like a dog or a human or a cow, they do not want to suffer in what happens in a slaughterhouse. Do you agree? Any animal wants to escape pain and death, right? So a dog or a cow or a human, we none of us would want to experience what happens in a slaughterhouse. Do you agree with that?
I think his connection might have gone.
Okay.
Vegan design. I don't know. Unless he's... Are you there, Dan?
Yeah, I think he's gone. Or maybe he just can't answer.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking. I don't know.
I hope not, because I've still got one thing I definitely want to ask before he goes, if he's still there.
He did. No, he's on. He's still here, but I don't know if you can hear us, Dan. Can you hear us or not? So we can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh, that's a shame.
Comment section is mad.
I think you've convinced a lot of people on the fence vegan design.
Yeah, I
think
mean, it's,
I've
the
been
more
reading some of the comments here.
I think, like, generally, I think this guy Dan is obviously like a thinking person, and I think the more you break down the arguments of thinking, rational, logical people, they can't defend what they're doing, and it is very easy to expose the inconsistencies and the kind of escaping from the logic that's been used all the time. So
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to propose the hypothetical situation that if we could like for like, I don't know how much land and how many cows he's got, but if we could like for like replace his income, his land same, everything the same, but we replace his cows with plants, would he take it? Or is there an actual choice because he enjoys harming them? Because if it's about, he said it's a hobby.
I
So I
doubt
don't know if
he.
it's about
I
financial
don't
income.
think he. I don't think he enjoys harming them. I don't
No,
think that's true.
that's why I want to propose. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. He's obviously a decent guy with.
I think it's cultural. I think it's all, it's what people are
There's
used
mutual
to,
respect there. Fair play. I mean, he's been on here for a good while now, so.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, hear you.
Yeah.
I've just
So what
all right,
we
I'll just
didn't,
pull over here.
it cut
I'll
out.
stop here.
We never got to hear your answer.
I can't. I don't know where you've. I've been gone now. I don't know how long. Where did we get to? Because I heard you guys talking about 10 seconds ago.
What was the question I was asking? I've forgotten now.
I'm just trying to remember what the question was. Yeah.
I did just catch. I caught something about swapping cows for plants.
Yeah.
And then
That
someone
was,
said about enjoying hurting animals. That's all. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the hypothetical situation I was going to propose. If we could
Yeah,
swap
go
for like
for it.
in terms of space, finances, whatever it is, all the cows you've got, and swap them for plants you haven't got to worry about. So you haven't got to think about all these things, biodiversity or any of that. It's all covered. It's a hypothetical situation. Would you take it?
For what? I'm going to use this. Just bear with me. For what gain?
Well, you wouldn't be harming any cows anymore, and you'd be making the same income or whatever it is that you now make. Everything is exactly the same, except no cows directly from you are ever harmed ever again.
So this is where I'm massively different. I'm massively different to your, I'm going to say, generic beef farmer. So
yeah, you're having the conversation.
As it stands at the minute,
I would agree.
I must be a pretty poor beef farmer because as it stands at the minute, I haven't actually physically or financially earned anything from the animals that I own.
So what do you, other than what's in it for you? What is your gain currently?
So my mentally, when I finish work and I drive down to where the cattle are out on the meadows and I walk amongst them and all of mine are named. All the females are named because their pedigree. So they are basically trying to keep a traditional native breed bloodline alive. And for me, I can go down and I have 2 or 3 of them that, I can walk up to. And as mad as it sounds, and, it probably will, I will tell them things that I would never, ever tell another human, another person. Wouldn't even dream of it.
But if you make that connection, does it not make it harder when you have to send them off to slaughter?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I'm never saying, life is hard.
So that would be a gain.
No matter what it is.
But if that is, I think the issue is that you're in this kind of system where you think that this is just the way it has to be, right? These cows have to be bred. They have to be sent to slaughter. No question. We're not going to doubt the system. But you already acknowledge within the current system that there is suffering, right? Why would you why would you feel bad about sending them to slaughter unless you recognize, like we were saying before, that, a dog, a cow, a human. Nobody wants to be in that situation of a slaughterhouse. So you do recognize that they're suffering in some sense, and you do recognize that that's not a nice thing for them. So I would just like encourage you to open the realm of what's on the table, and not just about methodology, not just like, oh, how can I do this current system in a better way, but also how about I just not do this at all? Because clearly I'm causing them intense suffering, death. You know, it's horrific what we're putting them through. I mean, maybe you didn't really go to the slaughterhouse. A lot of farmers are disconnected from the slaughter process and just, you know, wave their animals off on a truck. But maybe it's worth facing up to that. Maybe it's worth facing up to the reality and experience that for yourself. You know, go to the slaughterhouse, witness what actually happens to Daisy or Rex or these animals that you whisper your secrets to, and experience that ultimate betrayal from you, basically, of putting them in that situation. And it will be hard.
See, whereas I would argue the fact where you say that's this intense situation, you are painting the life that they lead, and I'm going to use the word life, from the moment they are born. No. Jesus Christ. They are, from the moment they are born to, let's say, a week, a day, whatever you want to say, prior to them going onto a lorry to the slaughterhouse.
Doesn't that make the betrayal even harder?
You're portraying that life like it is some sort of third, you know, world war-ridden life.
Do you think it's better? An interesting question. So if I have a dog that had a happy life, like a good life, right? So they had lots of, you know, good long walks in forests, and they went swimming in the lake and all this, you know, a wonderful life. Do you think that a dog that has a great life has more of an interest in keeping their life, you know, not being sent to the slaughterhouse? Or do you think that because that dog had a good life, it's more justified to, let's say, shoot them in the back of the head when we don't need to? Not mercy killing, just because we want to. I would argue that actually, you know,
you're saying
it's even more of a betrayal, right? Well, we don't need to. That's the point.
So,
clearly, we don't need to.
But as it stands at the minute, the demand for beef is there. So, in order to meet the demand, we need to provide that.
Yeah, but the
there.
demand
as it stands at the minute.
Demand is a want.
As it stands at the minute.
Yes, but it's a want, not a need. There is a difference between need and want. There might be a demand for child trafficking.
So people want to eat meat.
It doesn't mean that it's a requirement. It doesn't mean it's a necessity. It's just what people want, right? But also, like,
yeah, exactly.
What people want is also not clear, because the way that we have the system right now, I mean, you described that whole process of an anal probe going into the bull, electric ejaculation, and then, you know, restraining the cow, putting the gloved arm in the anus. None of that is communicated to the customer. The customer has this kind of fantasy of green fields and, you know, cycle of life. You know, they've watched The Lion King, and they have this kind of fantasy.
There's a huge disconnection from food.
Yeah, but that's not an accident. That's deliberate. You know, if you look at the packaging on butter or all these things, it's deliberately promoting this mythology that people are believing in. And so I don't think people are actually in control of what they actually want or what they demand. I think to some extent they're being manipulated by the industry, which wants them to keep buying the dead bodies of these animals and wants them to not think about all the kind of artificial practices and focus on the nature and all those nice imagery, because that's better for business.
Again, I think that the idea that, like I say, this life that they supposedly lead is horrendous and is
well, I think you can't ignore the
verging on
where vegans. It's very convenient.
No, that is part of the process. That is part of the process. I'm not denying that it happens.
Right? Yeah, so I think that's the problem. A lot of people want to ignore that.
You can't use the end as the headline piece for the whole life.
Well, clearly that part is problematic, right? So why are we not allowed to talk about it? I mean, it's a bit like saying, if I was talking about LGBTQ activism and you
I'm not saying we
and
can't
you
talk
said,
about it.
oh, we're not allowed to discuss, or we shouldn't be focusing on the parts where, homophobia or bullying or whatever it is in schools. Why are you focusing on this bit about bullying and LGBTQ homophobia or whatever it is in school? Why can't you focus on all the nice things that happen to LGBTQ people? Well, because we're focusing on the whole system, and we're not going to turn a blind eye to the bad stuff, right? There's enough of that going on already. The public are an expert at turning a blind eye to the slaughter process. But that is the reality. You are a beef farm. Beef is a dead cow, right? So the whole system is about getting dead animals, the dead bodies of animals.
Yeah, and I think the route you keep going down,
Yep.
which isn't necessarily your fault, it's the route that most people see themselves going down, is you keep getting stuck on this welfare issue about because they had a good existence up until the point that they were killed, that somehow justifies it, as opposed to some of these places where their existence is squalor from moment of birth till death. It's about the rights, though, regardless of the situations before.
So you're saying that they're equal?
It's a rights violation, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Every time that you're making a decision that you don't have the choice to make, you're violating their rights. It's not about the conditions. It's not about the life they lead before they're killed. It's the fact that you don't have the right to make that decision over their life. That's how
forgive. This may sound a little ignorant, but who are we, as a human race, to decide what rights that animal has? As far as why is it their right? Why is it our right that we should kill them or not kill them? Why is it their right that they should?
Hang on,
roam the land. Who decides?
You're conflating animal rights with human rights to decide not to put a cow in a slaughterhouse. I mean, that's a very shaky argument. I think the rights are not.
I'm trying to understand where the decision has come that we have just basically decided the rights.
But it's a bit like saying if a load of straight people were discussing gay rights and you said, hang on, what gives straight people the rights to decide not to abuse gay people? I mean, it's just absurd. It's not about that. It's about gay rights.
Sorry, just say that again. How have we
your
got straight people deciding?
So when you said, we're talking about animal rights, and you said, oh, that's, who gives us the right to not want to slit the throat of a cow or put a pig in a gas chamber, right? So as if this is somehow some kind of human right to grant rights to the animals, right? I think that's the line you were going down. And I was suggesting it's about as absurd as if we were a load of straight people were discussing gay rights, and you brought up as a rejection of gay rights to say, hey, who are we as a bunch of straight people to say that gay people have rights? I mean, it's not a sensible logic. It doesn't make sense.
No, but I wouldn't go down that route at all, because again, I'm not homophobic. I'm not.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting it was an analogy to show how ridiculous the logic was.
I am completely neutral. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, green, orange, pink, whatever you decide is your life, is the way you want to live it. This is what essentially I boil down to, in that.
Well, it's not a choice. Being black or being gay is not a choice, just like, being born in the body of a cow rather than a dog is not a choice. And that's why we should not be slitting the throats of cows the same way as we shouldn't be slitting the throats of dogs. They didn't choose to be, their discrimination is completely arbitrary. The fact that, we're kind to dogs, but we put pigs in gas chambers. And it is as absurd because, as discriminating against gay people because, or they were born, gay or whatever. It's not a choice, just the same as a pig doesn't choose to be born as a pig rather than a dog.
So this will sound fairly morbid, and you'll have to just bear with me on this. if there was a demand, how are you going to take it? Yes. If there was a demand for dog meat, do you think it would be provided for?
I mean, there are people eating dog meat.
Yeah. So if there was a demand for human flesh, human meat, do you think that would be catered for?
I mean, it might be I don't know that it happens as much, but yes, it might be. I mean, you could say that there is demand for all kinds of horrific things, but I would hope as a society we would put a stop to that, just the same as I think we as a society would put a stop to putting pigs in gas chambers.
But who decides what we put a stop to?
Well, we have a discussion based on, should we be causing harm to these victims? It's a bit like saying, who decides that we should, be not racist? Who gets to decide that? I mean, you're coming back to your original absurd argument.
Exactly.
It's a discussion. We're having this discussion now. So what happens is people start to discuss the ethics of it, and the idea that the people who are championing tolerance and kindness and compassion are somehow, bigoted to suggest kindness and compassion, I think is a little bit absurd. I think it's a way of avoiding the topic itself and trying to turn it back on the people proposing kindness and compassion or tolerance or anti-homophobia or anti-racism or not putting pigs in gas chambers. I think it's a way to turn it back and say, hey, you're trying to be a bigot by imposing your kindness on others. It's silly, really.
I think it's more the fact that if someone decides to do something within, we've got to use a legal loop, the legal barriers, because there will always be people that will fall outside of that legal loophole and do stuff that is socially unacceptable. Not just socially, it's, horrific. Like you said, child trafficking, rapes, murders, all that sort of stuff.
Right. So legality, okay.
Yeah, you've got to use that as a gauge, haven't you?
I mean, do you think legality equals ethics?
Great question. For some stuff, yes. I think that the legal system does let down a lot of situations. I mean, it's just come back to me talking about, the whole the legal side, and when you actually said, vegans don't harm people.
I don't think we can say that as a blanket statement. I mean, a vegan might harm somebody, yes.
No.
It will also harm animals. Yeah. To some extent, yeah. But I don't want to get too far away from that. So just to understand, my point would be about that. About I don't think you can say that just because the current laws are all we need to decide what's ethical or not. I don't think that's enough. Otherwise, by that logic, we would never be able to progress society. We would never have new laws to protect, individuals from, systems of oppression. It just wouldn't exist because we would always be pointing back to the existing law and saying, hey, this is what's ethical. We've already decided it in the law. So if, for example, if we take the issue, I'm sorry to keep using it because it's easy but for me, but if we take the issue of, being gay, you could be fired from your job for being gay if we go back a little bit in history, right, in the UK. And now, do you think that now, obviously, like we have laws passed where you can't fire someone from their job for that, but do you think that the day before or the week before or the month before that law was passed, that those businesses were ethical to fire people from their jobs for being gay? Or do you think like I think, whereas the ethical discussion happened first and then the legality caught up with the ethical discussion and made those laws in order to protect those people? And what was happening was it was always unethical, even when it was legal to do so. And the same could be said about what's happening now, right? So it's legal almost 90% of the 9 million pigs slaughtered in Britain each year are put into gas chambers. That's a legal practice that's happening right now. Now, it's clearly unethical, in my view, to be doing that to 9 million pigs a year. But the law hasn't caught up to that point where we do say that this is because it's unethical, we should be creating laws where we're not allowing this to happen. And we're not allowing, animal agriculture in total. So I don't think we can just point to the laws to say, hey, look, well, if something's in the law, therefore, hands in the air, we don't need to worry anymore. I don't think that's the case. We have to stay vigilant against all forms of oppression.
Again.
I think you're on mute, Dan.
You're going to hate me now because I don't know what happened with the sound, but I was hearing the previous sentence.
Well, my point is just that I don't think we can point.
I was hearing the previous sentence over
Yeah,
top of the
Dan.
second one.
You're going to hate me now because I don't know what happened with the sound, but I
Oh,
was
yeah,
hearing the
we're hearing
previous.
you repeating as well. No worries. Well, my point is just that I don't think we can point.
I was hearing the previous sentence.
I think you're going to have to leave and come back, Dan, if you can.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan, if you can hear, but basically we're just saying, I'm just trying to make the point that I don't think you can point to laws as being like, oh, well, if it's legal, then it's okay. Because, if you look back in history, all kinds of horrific acts were actually legal. And, we have to be able to push society forward. And I think these kind of discussions are essential. That is how new laws are made, because of, the discussions around the ethics, not the other way around. The ethical discussion comes first, then we make the laws.
Absolutely. And even then, you've still got to fight most of the times to get justice, even when the laws exist. So it's no guarantee.
Yeah, because society generally changes as a result of the people's consciousness changing, and then the laws reflect that over time. Yeah, it's generally the people that create the change in society, but the governments reflect it.
Yeah, and voting and all the rest of it, and then it'll slowly come. New laws will be passed, like we saw in the UK, didn't we? Like the Animal Sentience Bill came in recently, which was protecting, like you can't boil lobsters alive and stuff like that. In the UK. So that's obviously come about because of the discussion around the ethics.
Yeah, well, you can even look at the subject of just pure dog theft, for example. Look at how heated that is currently and how many petitions there are to get that turned into a proper sentence. So the understanding is definitely there. It's most of the problem is speciesism all the time that you're fighting against. People do have these sort of moral points. They're just limited to where they focus them. They do understand that certain things are wrong and they're wrong for the right reasons, but they're just very limited on where they'll look in that area. It's just that they've got a certain idea of what animal is this and what animal is that, but it's all just conditioning you have to break through. I mean, I was there once upon a time too, exactly the same. So it's not something that we're sort of criticizing anyone for directly or anything like that. It's more a case of we were there too. We understand, and now we can see it differently. We can see both perspectives, whereas most people can only still see one.
Yeah, and I think as vegans now as well, there's so many other vegans around who are coming up with all these ideas, and you can watch them on YouTube, like Earthling Ed, you can watch Joey Carbstrong. We can listen to one another, and it reinforces our belief that we're right, and the whole vegan movement and the ideas are growing all the time, and the films as well, and the footage we see, and the books that are being written. It just reinforces the belief that being vegan is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it just furthers on from what I said when I first joined earlier. You look at how many people there are now actively going out of their way, putting huge amounts of efforts into debunking this, and they're coming up with the same things that I've heard for 8 years. Nothing new, no science, no anything, just the same old thing. Yeah. They're seriously trying hard. They're just not getting anywhere. Because there isn't really an argument against it. I mean, if you take the stigma away, if you take the word vegan or veganism away, it's simply just about not wanting to cause harm to other beings. Who's really in support of that at that level?
Someone's saying you'll hate farmers, they put soy products on your plate. Well, firstly, vegans don't hate farmers.
We've just had an hour-long conversation with one.
We all rely on farmers as well, animal agriculture aren't the only farmers out there, right? But yeah, with the soy thing, you know, most of that soy is anyway feeding to the pigs and chickens that you're eating.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Dan's going to be coming back, but I think we had a long discussion with him, and I think it was quite
Yeah, it was a good
respectful. But
discussion.
I think you asked some great questions, vegan design, especially for those
Absolutely.
people who aren't aware. You know, it was a good discussion. Yeah, because it's unusual for us to get a farmer debating with vegans. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
people
nice.
weren't aware.
It's nice to have someone who stays in the conversation as well, because a lot of people,
Absolutely, yeah. Fair
they
credit to him
just
for that.
duck away and escape when they realise that they've lost the arguments. So yeah, it's good to really get into detail like that. That doesn't happen so often.
No, these
Yeah,
are my
'cause
favourite kind of streams, to be honest, and they don't happen very often.
yeah, they're very rare. Yeah, that's the actual reason I came on, because no one talks about veganism. You go through TikTok, it's all, like I was saying earlier, it's religion, politics,
Yeah,
people doing kind of things which just
I mean,
trying to get likes and gifts and
there's
stuff
lots
like
of
that.
issues out there in the world, and
Yeah.
I think there's space for
Um,
everyone to talk, right? Like, it's not, veganism
mm,
isn't the only issue. Of course, we should talk about other stuff as well, but you're right to say I think it's a bit underrepresented, let's say. So it's good that there's a few people like yourself, you know, that are putting time and effort into that.
Absolutely. Massive respect to both of you guys.
no,
All
same
right.
to you, both of you. Thanks for joining. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, man. Because like we wouldn't have had the discussion if you guys hadn't turned up. Yeah, and even to Dan as well. So yeah, it was a good discussion. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for speaking.
Thanks a lot.
No,
All right. Bye, guys.
See you later.
Right,
I'll go off as well,
cheers.
so you can have a few new people on, freshen up a little bit if you want.
Oh, no, I'm going to wrap it up in a minute. So yeah,
Okay.
thanks for
No
coming
worries.
on.
Well, lovely chatting, and thank you. Cheers.
Yeah. Great job, you guys. Right, thanks a lot, everyone. Yeah, make sure you give a follow to Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk, and Vegan Design as well. So
can I just give a very quick shout out to Liv Moral as well, please? He's only about 10 away from 1,000 now, so he can go live himself. He's only 17 and he's great. Literally a little genius kid. Hope for the
what's
future.
his name again?
Liv
Moral, did you say?
_moral, moral, and it'll come up as veganism is the future.
Oh, great, nice one. Yeah.
No
Okay,
worries.
everyone.
Speak to you soon.
Okay, cheers. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining Not Your Mum. Give a follow.